Hi there, I'm Savannah Mexta with Mannor Law Group, and I'm excited to welcome you to another webinar Wednesday with esteemed elder law and estate planning attorney, Robert Mannor. This week's webinar is especially for business owners. You work hard on your business, so it's important to know what steps are needed to protect your business, along with your family, your life savings, and of course, yourself. Today, Attorney Bob Mannor is sharing the top 5 reasons why a business owner needs an estate plan. Before I pass the mic to Bob, I'd like to cover a few housekeeping details. First, even though Bob is an attorney, today's webinar will not give specific legal advice. If you have a question about your unique situation, please contact us after the webinar. Also, if you have a general question during today's presentation, we encourage you to use the question box. We will save time at the end of the webinar to review those questions. If for some reason we don't get to your question, we will contact you after the presentation. Lastly, note that today's presentation will be recorded and the replay will be sent out tomorrow so that you can share this with family, friends, or anyone who you think could benefit from hearing this information. Now, why should you listen to what the folks at Mannor Law Group have to say? First, note that we're a nationally recognized and respected elder law and estate planning firm. All 3 of our attorneys are accredited by the Veterans Administration to assist veterans with claims and appeals. Attorney Bob Mannor is nationally board certified as an elder law attorney by the National Elder Law Foundation. He's one of only 19 attorneys in Michigan to achieve this designation. Bob is also a leader among elder law attorneys in Michigan. He's currently chair-elect of the State Bar of Michigan Elder Law and Disability Rights Section and past president of the National Academy of Elder Law Attorneys, Michigan chapter. Mannor Law Group has also been honored by readers of our local paper as the best or favorite law firm for the last 8 years in a row. Now, without further ado, I'd like to welcome Attorney Bob Mannor.
Hi, folks. I just wanted to spend a little bit of time on the unique things about estate planning for business owners. So it is actually requires a little bit of different planning. So a lot of times when you hear us talk, we say, well, we got to have those lifetime documents like your power of attorney and your medical documents and maybe a will, maybe a trust. But when it comes to business owners, there's actually some unique planning that needs to be done. We can't just rely on the standard planning that other folks do, because there are some specific unique issues that we have to deal with. And so the first thing that I want to talk about is why. And the answer is because your family depends on it. So when we have estate planning, I mean, this is true for everybody, that your family depends on your income, they depend on your whatever that you've gathered through the years, but this is particularly true for a business owner. So one of the things that we're often talking about is small businesses or family businesses. And so the unique thing about family businesses is you don't necessarily get that paycheck. You don't necessarily get that that pension that's set up for you. You're kind of on your own, and it's your income, your family's income is often dependent on what you have the business staying in business. And so it's so important to make sure that we've thought through and at least have some kind of plan in order in the event that you got in a car accident, in the event, does the business depend on you, or can the business continue without you? Even if it can, how will it? Okay, what does that process look like? So let's imagine that the business can run without you. You could leave for 6 months and the business can continue to run without you. Great, that's fantastic. You're a great business person if that's the case. But we still have to think about from the standpoint of, but how legally is that going to work? How are we legally going to make sure, especially if there's any partnership and things like that, whether it's a corporation or a limited liability company or a partnership or however you have your business set up, even a DBA, which is a doing business as, it's going to make it important that we have an ability to have access to that, have access to changing that if you died, if you became incapacitated, if you got sick for an extended period of time. Do you have a spouse? Do you have kids? Do you have somebody that we would want that to go on to? Do we care about the partners? Do we care about the employees? How are we going to make sure that that's going to continue and that there's a clear mechanism for that? Now, part of this is business planning. Part of this is where we might have a buy-sell agreement or things like that. right within the business documents. Sometimes it's built right into the corporate documents. If you have a corporation or LLC, there should be some language in there. And if there's not, we better add that. That better be added if you have any business partners. If it's just you, if you own the business, that creates its own set of issues, because we don't want that necessarily to be tied up in probate and not have your family have the ability to continue that business or liquidate the business or whatever it would need to be done under those circumstances. If you have partners, it's even more complicated, because we've got to look at that partnership agreement that says, you can't just take, if you're a 1/3 partner, you can't take that 1/3 and just sell it on the open market. It's not like the stock market. You can't go to the New York Stock Exchange and say, well, I want to sell 1/3 of my local family business that I own with my brothers. That's just not, there's no mechanism for that. So it's called a closely held business, and we have to have built-in rules, because the other two partners aren't going to necessarily consent to just any stranger coming in and owning that. They may or may not consent to your spouse owning it. And so we've got to have that recognized. We have to have that accepted, and we have to have it accepted by the partners frequently. So that's really important that we include that as part of the planning. And then it has to be addressed in your individual planning. So the business has to plan for it, and each of the individuals that are owners have to plan for it, because your family is dependent on it. All right, so then the next thing, it kind of leads into what we've been talking about, is succession planning. And succession planning is so very, very important. And often people don't think about it too much. They may have this little side business or things like that, and you got an account, and maybe you have some inventory, and you have some things like that. Well, if you were gone, would we have the right to sell that inventory? Would we have the right to access that account? Well, we know what happens when it's, when it's a individual account. If it's not a business account, it's just in your name. Well, that might have to go through your will. It might have to go through probate. If you have a trust, we would put it in the trust, and it would go through the trust. But if it's in a business account, so you set up an LLC, you set up a DBA, a doing business as, you set up an S corporation, whatever it is, and now all of a sudden we don't have access to that account, because there's nothing filed anywhere to say who would step into that role as the member of the LLC, especially if it's a single member LLC or single owner S corp. So we've got to have that built into the business planning. Ideally, we have an exit plan. So no matter what stage you are in business and how old you are, we should probably have thought through an exit plan that says, okay, maybe I plan on doing this business for the next 20, 30 years. Great, that's a great plan. But what if, right? What if? How is that going to happen? And one of the big things is, there's multiple things that we have to think about here. So having an exit plan in the event. So what are we going to do? Is it the type of business that we would just liquidate? Is it the type of business that has inventory? Would it just shut down? Can we access the bank accounts? Can we, solve the inventory? Is there a way to go through that? What is that exit plan? Could we continue the business? Is there a way we could sell the business? Somebody else would come in and buy it. What about a customer list? Sometimes customer lists are very, very valuable. And so there's, even if you don't think you have physical assets, well, goodwill and a customer list and those types of things are valuable assets that your competitor might pay for in the event that that you're not going to continue the business. So of course we have to look at your individual family goals, and then we have to look at the business plan. So is it part of the business plan? If you've got two partners that you've been in business with for some time, would it be acceptable to them to have your spouse come in and act as a business partner now? Is that going to be acceptable to them? Because they may not find that acceptable. We can't just say, well, this is my family goal. If I'm gone, I would want my spouse to take over. You can say that, but then the others have to agree to that too. So we've got to look at the business goals, we got to look at your individual family goals, and then we've got to look at the ownership goals. What is the intent? Can it continue? Would it continue without the partners? Can the employees take over? Those types of things. All right. So the next thing is the ability to direct the estate. I'll tell you an example we had one time. So it was a pretty small business. It was, just kind of the guy doing work on his own, and he had just developed some clients through the years, and he had some money in the accounts, and Never set it up as a business entity, never set it up as an LLC or a corporation or anything like that, but just had a DBA, a doing business as. Well, it was kind of difficult to get access to that because the DBA was only in his name. And so when he became incapacitated and when he died, the family was left struggling to say, okay, how do we access the business? How do we direct the business? How do we get access to the money and sell the equipment and those types of things? And so we had to go through a formal process to do that. It would have been a lot easier had we set that up when he was still capable, when he was still able to do that, and make sure that it's part of your estate plan. So if you're a sole owner, that's not, just because you don't have partners doesn't mean that we don't have to have a plan. You need to be able to direct where it goes. Does it go to your spouse? Does it go to your children? Does it, is there a way that it can continue? Is there a way that your spouse could sell it? She can't, your spouse, he or she can't sell it if they don't have ownership of it. And a lot of times the small businesses are just owned by one spouse or the other. The other spouse has, isn't an owner of the business. And so you'll probably want to direct that. And maybe it would go according to the terms of your will, or maybe it wouldn't go. Maybe the business is kind of a different thought. What if you're in a professional business? So somebody that has a professional license, like an accountant or a lawyer or a physical therapist or something like that. A lot of times professional businesses cannot be owned by someone who is not licensed in that field. So for example, a lawyer's business cannot be owned by somebody who's not licensed as a lawyer. There cannot be owners. That may change in the future, but for that's the way it is now and probably for the foreseeable future. And there's other businesses like that you cannot own the business unless you're licensed to practice that profession. And so you can't just say, well, my spouse would get it. No, well, there's got to be a mechanism. There's got to be a process. We might have to have a buy-sell agreement. We might have to have some kind of agreement with a licensed practitioner of whatever that profession is that you do, so that there would be a way to access that continuance, sell it to your spouse, sell the interest, but there has to be directed. And so if you don't have anything directing it, you're leaving a big hassle for your family. You're leaving a big hassle for your kids, for your spouse. You have to make sure that these things have been thought through and taken care of. Okay. And then one of the things that we want to think about, a lot of times if you're in business, you're going to end up with some business debt. It's a pretty common thing. You have a copy machine, you have computer rentals, you have your phone system, you have a business loan that you took out. Are your family going to be saddled with that debt? Is there a way, if you set up an entity like a LLC or a S corp or some type of business entity, some kind of partnership, something like that, if you haven't and you have debt, maybe you should. Maybe we should switch that over to an LLC. You don't have any business entity, we want to think about that, because if the business couldn't continue without you, which is one possibility, would you want to saddle your family with that debt in the event that you die or you become incapacitated or you can't work anymore? Is there a way to put that debt in the entity? And sometimes there is. And is there a mechanism that we can deal with that debt if you already have that entity set up? How is that going to be dealt with? How is that going to be dealt with when it comes to maybe selling the business or leaving it to the partners? If you have partners in your business? So this is something that we really have to think about, especially if the business has any type of debt. And most businesses do, even if it's just a business lease of a copy machine or something like that. Well, that can be expensive to leave to the family if they're not going to continue the business. All right, and then finally, taxes, right? So this is so important that we think about this. A lot of times people try to have their taxes, if it's a small business, the taxes flow through to them. Well, it's still important to get good advice on this, not only from the standpoint of leaving that behind, leaving that to your family and making sure that that's handled properly, but also during the operation of the business. We got to make sure we're filing the proper tax forms. We got to make sure that we're setting it up in such a way that we're not being taxed too much, that we're following the tax rules, that we're not violating the rules. And so tax is a big element of this. So basically what it comes down to is if you own a business, even if it's just a small side business or something like that, we really have to think that through. It's not like other assets. It's not like a bank account or an investment account or even real estate. We have to think that through separately, and you want to make sure that you've discussed that with us or your attorney, and that we make sure that we think through all of those things with regard to the business. So a lot of times when I'm meeting with clients, we'll go through all these things. I'll ask them all these questions. I'll ask them about all their assets, and the business is almost an afterthought. And we have this process when we're drafting legal documents where we kind of have a check, double check, triple check, quadruple check. And as part of that process, sometimes the clients get, seem like I'm being repetitive. And I say, okay, I know you told me all the assets, but I'm going to go through this list anyway. And I can't tell you how many times I get down to business assets and they say, oh yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah, we got this little side business we've been doing, and yeah, there's probably $10,000 in there, or there's some inventory or something like that. Well, we need to know that. We need to think about that. We need to include that in your plan. And it is often overlooked. And so, it's people don't think about a business as being an asset like a bank account, but it is. It's an asset. And it has value, even if even if it doesn't have a bank account, if it has other types of value. So it is something that you're going to want to make sure is thought through, is included in your estate plan. And if you have questions about that, then Savannah's gonna come on and she's gonna tell you exactly how you could have us include your business in your estate plan and make sure that we update that. If you're an existing client and you started a business, we need to know that. We need to make sure that we update your plan accordingly. So Savannah, if you want to give them some instructions as far as how asking questions and scheduling an appointment to update their plan to include the business.
Thanks, Bob. And as Bob mentioned, this is very important for business owners. So we do definitely want to connect with you. There are very easy ways for you to get in touch with our team. Of course, you can always give us a call. I'll go ahead and put our phone number in the chat box now, and that is 810-694-9000. Again, 810-694-9000. You can give us a quick call, ask us questions about our firm. We'll ask you questions about your business, about your situation, your goals, and we'll take it from there. If you're busy, like most business owners are, and you don't have time to pick up the phone right now, you can also click to schedule a day and time when a member of our team will give you a call. And I've gone ahead and pasted that in the chat as well. And I will be sending you an email in a few minutes and tomorrow that will also have this link in the email. When you click the link, it will take you to a calendar. You'll choose a day and time when a member of our team can give you a call. And again, the call will just be you getting a chance to ask questions about our firm, about our process, about our attorneys, and then we'll ask you important questions about your business and your goals. So I hope that we hear from you soon. I will be sending that email shortly. If you ever have any questions or you'd like to talk, just know we're here. Look forward to seeing you again next week.